Well, CNN's chief White House correspondent Jim Acosta facing some backlash for shouting questions about killing DACA at President Trump while he was coloring with his son and another group of very young children at the White House Easter egg roll yesterday. Take a listen to this.
The Democrats have really let them down. They've really let them down. They had this great opportunity. The Democrats have really let them down. It's a shame. And now people are taking advantage of DACA, and that's a shame.
So let's bring in Howie Kurtz, Fox News media analyst and host of Media Buzz. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So it's an Easter egg roll, in front of these kids. They're trying to, color, and the Easter bunny was there, too.
Yeah, I'm all for shouted questions, but Jim Acosta clearly crossed a line by doing it in this setting with a bunch of children surrounding the president. He did get an answer, which is why reporters do it. But it's no accident that Acosta did this on DACA, an issue in which he is clearly an advocate. Quick example, last year, White House briefing with Stephen Miller. Acosta, what the president is proposing does not sound like it's in keeping with American tradition when it comes to immigration. The Statue of Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor. You're bringing a press one for English philosophy to immigration. That's never been what the U.S. has been about. Now, does that sound like a journalist questions or an activist engaging in debate?
Yeah. So let's hear what Trump's 2020 campaign manager had to say, Brad Parscale. He chimed in on Twitter. Here's what he said. He said, Parscale, I should say. He said this, maybe it's time for Jim Acosta to get a suspension for breaking protocol. He continues to embarrass himself and CNN, pull his credentials for each incident. So, of course, he responded, Jim Acosta, back on Twitter, and this is what he said: just doing my job, which is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. You might want to give it a read. So back and forth.
Yeah, sure, it's a question of how you do your job and in a setting in which you ask such a question. I think it was a bit of an overreaction for Brad Parscale to talk about pulling his credentials. That's actually not up to the White House. It's up to the White House Correspondents Association. But clearly, President Trump, no fan of CNN, tweeted today, I guess, against CNN President Jeff Zucker and said, you can't get a job at Ratings Challenge CNN unless you state that you're totally anti-Trump. Well, Jason Miller, former campaign aide who works for CNN, I'm sure would disagree with that. CNN punching back false. The personal political beliefs of CNN employees are of no interest to us. I think the question here is, CNN, I have to assume, must be happy with the job that Acosta is doing, because this sort of thing has come up again and again, and he doesn't seem to be reined in by the network at all.
Yeah, grandstanding. But you've covered the media for a while. I mean, isn't it interesting how things have changed? Because I remember a day and age when reporters weren't supposed to be the story themselves.
Yeah, well, that's changed on a lot of fronts in the age of Twitter and everyone going on cable news and all of that. But, when you're a White House correspondent, it seems to me you're different. Yes, you should be aggressive. And I was critical of correspondents who were rude and interrupted President Obama, so I'm consistent on this. But when you do it in that fashion, a bunch of children sitting around, and when you are debating the issues with the president or his aides, instead of asking questions, trying to elicit information, that's not really the role of the White House correspondent, and that's where I have some problems with the way Acosta does his job.
Yeah. On the other hand, though, President Trump is known to go off script frequently. I mean, he stood beside the Easter Bunny yesterday, and he talked about the amount of money going into the military, that type of thing.
Yeah, look, the fact is, if you rarely got a chance to ask a question to the president, then I suppose you could justify doing it in any setting. This president actually stops and takes questions a lot at White House photo ops, when he's going to the helicopter and all of that. So you can say a lot of things about President Trump, and he does punch back hard against the media, CNN particularly. He also goes after NBC and the New York Times and the, quote, Amazon Washington Post, which, of course, they're separate companies. But you can't say he doesn't take questions from the press.
No, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Howie. Have a good day.
Great to see you.
About 20 minutes past the hour.